She leans closer, smiles softly, and you think it's interest. It's not. It's evaluation. Her eyes are not windows of love. They're tools of measurement. She's not admiring you. She's looking for weakness, measuring tone, silence, rhythm, the invisible currencies of control. In that single moment, she doesn't ask who you are. She decides whether you are powerful or weak. Most men speak to be liked. They fill silence with noise, afraid of the space between words. But every word that seeks approval burns away a piece of mystery. And once the mystery dies, attraction follows because she does not crave connection. She craves tension. She wants to feel the quiet gravity of a man who doesn't need to explain himself. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He wrote of kings and courts, of those who ruled and those who begged to be noticed. But beneath the politics was always psychology, the dark art of perception. He knew that power is not in what is said, but in what is held back. That control begins in silence, and silence, when deliberate, is the most seductive form of speech. Desire does not bloom in comfort. It grows in the friction between fear and fascination. The more predictable you are, the less she feels. The more uncertain she becomes, the more her imagination eats you up. An imagination once awakened is far more intoxicating than reality. When she can't read you, she starts to build you. She writes stories in her mind about who you are, what you think, what you might do next. You become a mirror for her projections, a vessel for her fantasies. Every pause becomes a question. Every look becomes a riddle. Every word a controlled explosion of curiosity. Ask yourself when you speak, do your words reveal depth or desperation? Do you create space for her to wonder or do you rush to fill it? Does she feel slightly off balance around you, uncertain of where she stands? Because that uncertainty is the birthplace of desire. You lose her not when you say something wrong, but when you make her feel too safe. Safety is where passion goes to die. A woman does not fall for kindness alone. She falls for contrast, for warmth wrapped in restraint, for presence tempered by distance, for the man who could give her everything but chooses not to. That choice, the decision not to reveal, is what Machiavelli called the architecture of power. A ruler never exposes his intent. He lets others interpret his silence. And in their interpretations, they enslave themselves. The same law governs attraction. When she tries to define you, she begins to chase you. When she chases, she invests. And when she invests, she becomes addicted. Not to you, but to her own uncertainty about you. You think you're talking to her, but in truth, you're teaching her how to feel about you. Every tone, every pause, every held-back truth shapes the frame of her desire. You are not communicating. You are calibrating tension. That is the dark art of talking to women. The Machiavellian art of desire. It's not manipulation. It's mastery of perception. You're not pretending to be someone else. You're simply refusing to collapse under the need to be understood. Because when you stop trying to convince her, you start to control her imagination. And her imagination is the kingdom you must rule. Not through noise, not through validation, but through elegant restraint. So remember this, the man who fills every silence with words becomes ordinary. The man who fills every silence with presence becomes unforgettable. Stay until the end of this video because you're about to see how Machiavellian psychology turns every conversation into a silent seduction where the less you reveal, the deeper she falls. Part 1. Every conversation is a silent power negotiation. Every conversation is a battlefield disguised as civility. Every smile, every pause, every word, a currency exchange in silence. Most men walk into it unarmed, believing they are there to connect. But connection is not what she is scanning for. She's assessing power. She's measuring who will set the emotional temperature of the moment, you or her. Machiavelli understood that all human interaction, from the court of a king to the whisper of a lover, is a silent power negotiation. He never saw communication as a path to mutual understanding. He saw it as a performance of perception. Who appears more composed? Who controls rhythm? Who commands emotional gravity? That to him determined who ruled the frame and who served inside it. And in the modern world, this law hasn't changed. You may not wear armor or a crown, but the game is identical. When you speak to a woman, she isn't reacting to your words. She's reacting to your state, your calm, your pauses, your ability to stay unmoved in the face of her testing energy, because deep down she is not looking for comfort. She is searching for a center strong enough to absorb her chaos without flinching. Every man believes he loses her because he said something wrong. But words are rarely the problem. The problem is hunger. The subtle tremor in your tone when you seek her approval. The too fast laugh. The over-explanation. The way your eyes ask, "Did she like that?" You think you're expressing interest. But to her, it's blood in the water. A signal that you've placed her above you. That your emotional balance depends on her response. And once she senses that imbalance, she can no longer feel attraction. Because in her subconscious, safety has replaced danger. And danger is what fuels desire. You lose her not when you say too little, but when you reveal too much of your need to be seen. That need to be understood, accepted, validated is the scent of submission. It's the psychological equivalent of kneeling. And no woman craves the man who kneels for approval. She craves the man who can stand in silence and let her curiosity rise to meet him. Machiavelli wrote that appearances rule the world, not reality. He understood that power lies not in truth but in the perception of control. In relationships, the same rule applies. The man who controls the perception controls the dynamic. This doesn't mean lying. It means composure. Because composure is the highest form of dominance. In conversation, composure is not passive. It's active stillness. It's the refusal to let emotional waves dictate your tone. When she challenges you, when she withdraws, when she provokes, the Machiavellian man doesn't flinch. He watches. He observes. He understands that every emotional spike she throws is a test of his internal hierarchy. Not to destroy him, but to confirm that he is what he appears to be, unmoved. Silence in this sense becomes a mirror. It reflects her emotions back to her, forcing her to feel the imbalance between her volatility and your stillness. And in that imbalance, attraction ignites because your calm becomes her chaos's container. She can push, but she cannot move you. And the moment she realizes that, she starts to orbit your gravity. The truth is brutal. She doesn't want equality in emotion. She wants polarity, the pull of the composed toward the impulsive, the magnetic tension between what is certain and what is unpredictable. She wants to feel small in your presence, not humiliated, but enveloped by something stronger than herself. A calm authority that doesn't seek to dominate her, yet doesn't bow to her mood. That paradox is what her instincts crave, but her ego resists. Most men fail because they think talking is about exchanging information. It's not. It's about establishing emotional hierarchy. In her world, words are just vibrations testing your solidity. Every time you over-explain, you crumble a little. Every time you rush to reassure her, you hand her your frame. Every time you seek to be understood, you tell her you are beneath her. Judgment. Machiavelli warned rulers never to explain themselves to those beneath them. Explanations imply guilt and guilt invites attack. In the court of desire, the same rule holds. The more you justify your words or your silence, the more power you surrender. Because justification is hunger dressed in logic. To speak with power, you must first remove the hunger behind your words. Speak as if your voice is a gift, not a request. Let your pauses breathe longer than comfort allows. Let your gaze rest without apology. Let your energy declare, "I am the center." You may orbit, but you do not shake me. Power in conversation is not loudness. It's weight. And weight comes from stillness. When you speak slowly, she leans in. When you hold your frame under pressure, her nervous system adjusts to yours. You are no longer reacting. You are leading through tempo because the one who controls the tempo controls perception. And Machiavelli knew perception is power. Watch your next conversation carefully. Listen for the moments when your voice betrays the need to be liked. Notice how many times you seek her approval without realizing it. Approval seeking is not kindness. It's control handed away. And once it's gone, no charm, no humor, no intelligence can recover it. Every word you speak either builds your throne or digs your grave. Every pause either invites her respect or exposes your desperation. The throne is built not from perfect lines, but from disciplined restraint. It's built from the courage to let silence speak for you. When you understand that, talking to women becomes a different game. You stop chasing reactions. You start conducting energy. You begin to see that every conversation is an experiment in composure, a test of whether your presence commands her attention or crumbles beneath her unpredictability. And when she meets a man who doesn't crumble, she feels something rare. Relief. Because beneath her confidence, her charm, her performance of control, she is waiting to meet gravity. Something she can feel but not define. Something that steadies her chaos without trying to fix it. That is what she calls chemistry. Though it's not chemistry, it's calibration. The Machiavellian man does not seek to dominate. He seeks to embody structure. He becomes the invisible frame that defines the space around him. While other men chase her attention, he commands her focus without demand. While they drown in words, he rules through presence. And that presence is built on one truth Machiavelli carved into history. It is better to be feared than loved when love costs respect. In Desire, the modern translation is this. It is better to be craved than understood when understanding kills the mystery. So the next time you speak, remember she's not listening to what you say. She's feeling whether your words come from need or from knowing. If they come from need, she forgets you the moment you leave. If they come from knowing, you linger. Not in her memory, but in her nervous system. Because composure is not a trait, it's an aura. And once you master it, every conversation becomes a silent negotiation of power that you've already won before the first word leaves your lips. Part 2. Most men lose by seeking approval. The moment you try to be understood, you've already surrendered because the instant you seek understanding, you reveal dependence. Dependence is hunger and hunger is the smell of weakness. Machiavelli warned rulers centuries ago, never seek love before respect. The same law governs desire. Love built without respect collapses under its own need. Respect without love can still command, still attract, still burn. But love without respect becomes pity. And pity is the death of desire. Most men don't understand that when they speak to women, they are not having a conversation. They are entering an invisible hierarchy. It's not about equality. It's about perception. She feels who is leading the emotional exchange. She knows without words whether your tone carries authority or apology. And once she senses that you're asking for her validation, even silently, the polarity flips. You stop being the source of gravity. You start orbiting hers. Every man who's ever been ghosted, dismissed, or slowly faded out thinks it happened because of timing or compatibility. No, it happened because he exposed his emotional need too soon. The need to be liked, the need to be understood, the need to be accepted. Women are exquisitely sensitive to that vibration. It tells them instantly whether a man has internal structure or not. Machiavelli called it the economy of power, a system where perception dictates value. He observed that those who beg for loyalty rarely deserve it because the act of begging implies a lack of control over oneself. The same is true for emotional validation. When you seek it, you silently confess, my sense of worth is in your hands. And once she feels that, she loses respect. Her curiosity evaporates. You no longer hold tension. You become predictable. To understand this, you must see attraction for what it is. Not emotional harmony but psychological imbalance. One gives, one withholds. One chases, one remains still. When you seek her approval, you reverse the natural flow. You place yourself in the role she was meant to occupy. You become the one performing and she becomes the one judging. And no woman can desire what she is busy evaluating. A Machiavellian man knows that approval is the currency of the powerless. He never trades it first. He establishes his value before he speaks, not through arrogance, but through calibration. He understands that his presence must announce itself before his words ever do. The frame, not the phrase, defines who leads. Women are drawn to mystery, not because it's romantic, but because it forces them to feel something. It awakens uncertainty, a tension between safety and danger. When you talk too much, explain too much, reveal too much, you collapse that tension. You become transparent, predictable, harmless. And harmless men do not create desire. They create comfort. Comfort is the quiet grave of attraction. The moment you try to justify yourself, you're already beneath her. The moment you explain why you did or said something, you confirm guilt. And Machiavelli taught that guilt invites attack. Power doesn't explain, it defines. Power doesn't apologize, it redirects. When she tests you, she isn't trying to humiliate you. She's trying to find your ceiling. She wants to know if you can withstand pressure without cracking. So, when she challenges your opinion, ignores your message, or pulls away emotionally, she's not being cruel. She's measuring. She wants to see if your calm was real or just a performance. If you flinch, defend, or explain, you confirm that your composure was an act. But if you hold your silence, calm, detached, unbothered, she feels the weight of your reality press against hers. And that weight is what she trusts. Validation is the drug of the weak. It feels good in the moment, but it creates addiction. Every like, every response, every small acknowledgement becomes a hit of dopamine, feeding the illusion of worth. But the man who lives on validation is like a beggar living on borrowed coins, dependent on others to feel alive. Machiavelli would have called it emotional servitude. And servitude, even in romance, kills attraction faster than cruelty. The Machiavellian man flips the dynamic. He doesn't seek validation. He provides it selectively. He offers recognition only when it reinforces his frame, never when it erodes it. When he compliments, it's deliberate. When he approves, it's measured. And when he withholds, it's not out of coldness, but strategy. He understands that scarcity creates value in words, in attention, in presence. To be Machiavellian is to understand that people value what they must earn. The moment something is freely given, it loses its allure. This applies to power, loyalty, and yes, even affection. When a woman feels she must earn your attention, she becomes invested. Her mind begins to orbit around the question, why hasn't he given me more? That question becomes obsession. But when you flood her with approval, there's no tension left to sustain attraction. You've given away the only leverage that mattered, uncertainty. So you must master the discipline of elegant restraint. Let silence speak where words once begged. Let stillness become your language. When she accuses, don't defend. When she withdraws, don't chase. When she praises, don't melt. Each act of restraint builds your internal empire. Each refusal to explain strengthens your throne. Remember, approval is not connection. It's transaction. The man who seeks it first becomes indebted before the game even begins. The man who withholds it until it's earned becomes the prize. And women don't fall for those who seek. They fall for those who must be sought. Machiavelli wrote that rulers must project an image of virtue while privately mastering vice. Translated into the language of desire, a man must project warmth but be willing to withhold it. He must appear approachable yet remain ungraspable. Because the essence of attraction is contradiction, soft and strong, open yet untouchable. That duality is what separates the admired from the forgotten. You must stop thinking of communication as honesty and start seeing it as architecture. Your words are bricks. Your pauses are mortar. Your silence is the foundation. Most men build houses made of glass, transparent, fragile, desperate to be seen. The Machiavellian man builds stone walls. He lets curiosity knock, but never rushes to open the door. And the longer she waits, the more valuable entry becomes. When she feels that she cannot fully know you, she starts to feel you more deeply. Because mystery doesn't block emotion. It intensifies it. Her imagination fills the gaps your restraint creates. And in that psychological vacuum, her emotions echo louder. That's when desire transforms into obsession. But this is not about pretending. It's not about cold games or manipulation. It's about mastering the energy exchange that governs all human interaction. It's about understanding that people, especially women, are drawn not to kindness or charm alone, but to gravity. And gravity cannot exist where approval does. Gravity demands distance, weight, composure. So when you feel that urge to explain, to reassure, to prove your worth, stop. Feel the discomfort of silence. Let it stretch. Let her sit in the uncertainty you create. Because while she tries to decode your stillness, her mind starts to invest. Her imagination starts to work for you. This is what Machiavelli meant when he said, men should be either caressed or crushed. For if they are merely offended, they will seek revenge. In love, it translates to this. Never meet her halfway. Either give her nothing and let her hunger grow, or give her everything only when it serves your control of the frame. Half measures kill desire. Extremes create magnetism. Approval is easy to give and everything easy loses its power. The most dangerous man is the one who gives slowly, who lets his energy feel earned because she knows instinctively that what is scarce must be valuable. Next time she tests you, don't explain. Let silence carry the weight. Let her wrestle with her own curiosity. Let her confusion become fascination. Because before words can command attention, the frame must command reality. And once your frame becomes the ground she stands on, she won't just listen to your words, she'll start to believe them. When that happens, you no longer chase connection. You create gravity. You become the axis around which her emotions revolve. Not through effort, not through performance, through stillness. The Machiavellian kind that knows approval is for the weak and silence is for the powerful. Part 3. Install your frame before the words. Power isn't spoken. It's felt long before a word is said. Every interaction begins before the first sound leaves your lips. Before speech, there is presence. Before language, there is rhythm. And before meaning, there is energy. The Machiavellian man understands this. He knows that control begins not in language, but in the invisible. In the subtle dance between composure and unpredictability. Most men rush to speak because silence terrifies them. They believe communication starts with words. It doesn't. It starts with the frame. The frame is the invisible structure of perception that decides who leads and who follows, who is being read and who is reading. Before you even open your mouth, your energy announces your rank. It whispers whether you are the man who defines reality or the one who adjusts to it. Machiavelli once observed that the wise ruler commands not through words but through presence. He doesn't beg loyalty, he radiates inevitability. He doesn't explain power. He embodies it. And that principle, though written for courts and kingdoms, governs desire with equal precision. When you speak to a woman, she is not only listening to your words, she is scanning for your internal rhythm. She feels it before she understands it. She notices the spacing between your words, the pauses, the stillness in your eyes. She feels whether you move from confidence or from anxiety. Whether your tone comes from abundance or from hunger. And if she senses hunger, the frame is already hers. A man who installs his frame before words never competes for attention. He commands it. He doesn't chase reactions. He creates an atmosphere where others adapt to him. It's the quiet dominance that makes people lower their voices when he enters the room. It's the slowness that makes her heartbeat quicken without knowing why. Your body is the first language she understands. The way you stand, grounded, unhurried. The way you breathe, deep, steady, deliberate. The way you hold eye contact, not to impress, but to observe. In that moment, you're not performing. You're defining the emotional tone of the interaction. She calibrates to you. Her tempo follows yours. If you're still, she becomes animated. If you slow down, she starts to speed up. If you pause, she fills the silence. Without realizing it, she begins to dance around your calm. This is the law of psychological gravity. The more still your center, the more others orbit around it. The man who moves too much, talks too fast, or explains too eagerly collapses his gravity. He becomes a satellite, circling her perception. But the man who stays grounded, who lets silence breathe between words, becomes the sun in her emotional sky. Machiavelli would call this the architecture of perception. He knew that human beings are drawn not to truth but to certainty. They don't follow the loudest voice, they follow the calmest. Because calmness under pressure signals control. Control signals safety. And safety, when laced with mystery, creates the tension that women call attraction. When you slow down, something primal happens. Her mind begins to race to fill the void. Your silence becomes a mirror, reflecting her curiosity back at her. She starts to wonder what you're thinking, how you see her, what your quiet means. In her attempt to decode you, she invests emotional energy. That energy becomes attachment. And attachment, once planted, grows into fascination. Powerful men throughout history, from emperors to seducers, understood this instinctively. Napoleon spoke less than his generals but commanded more presence. Julius Caesar was known not for his loudness but for his stillness in chaos. And Machiavelli, watching from the shadows of Florence, studied this truth. The man who controls perception never needs to fight for attention. He lets attention come to him. So how do you install your frame before words? You do it through control of tempo. Tempo is the heartbeat of dominance. When you walk slower than the room. When you speak, you pause longer than comfort allows. When you respond, you delay, not to play games, but to show you are unshaken. Because the man who responds instantly is reacting. The man who pauses owns the moment. The Machiavellian man is deliberate. Every movement has weight. Every silence has meaning. Every gaze is a test of patience. Not hers, but his own. He knows that unpredictability is oxygen for attraction. Predictability kills tension. If she knows what you'll say, what you'll feel, what you'll do, the mystery dies. But when your rhythm is unreadable, when your silence hides both warmth and distance, she becomes emotionally disoriented. And that disorientation is the seed of obsession. Women are not drawn to perfection. They're drawn to polarity, the balance of danger and safety, warmth and indifference, closeness and distance. Your frame must contain all of it. Too cold and she shuts down. Too eager and she loses respect. The art lies in mastering contrast. A gaze that's soft enough to invite, but still enough to intimidate. A smile that's subtle, restrained, almost like a secret she wants to earn. A presence that says, I could give you everything, but not yet. Try saying less, but meaning more. A steady gaze, a half smile, then silence. Watch what happens. Her breathing changes. Her pupils expand. Her body adjusts to the gravity of your stillness. Because silence in a man is never neutral. It's either weakness or weapon. And a Machiavellian makes sure it's the latter. In that silence, you communicate everything words can't. Confidence, mystery, self-control. The message isn't "I don't know what to say." The message is "I don't need to say it." When you reach this state, conversation becomes ritual. Every gesture, every word, every pause carries meaning. You are no longer reacting to her mood. You're dictating its rhythm. Your calm becomes contagious. Her nervous energy softens. She adjusts her tone, her posture, her breathing, all without realizing she's doing it. This is not manipulation. It's leadership. It's the psychology of the frame. Quiet authority that bends her emotional state without ever raising your voice. But here's the paradox. You can't fake this energy. You can't perform stillness. You must become it. Stillness that comes from suppression feels dead. Stillness that comes from mastery feels alive. Women feel the difference instantly. One repels, the other mesmerizes. So, you must cultivate what Machiavelli called the illusion of effortless control. It's the art of appearing calm while calculating everything. It's knowing that tension is your ally, not your enemy. It's the ability to let her feel slightly unbalanced while you remain immovable. Because her uncertainty fuels your power. When you master your internal rhythm, the external world bends around it. You begin to notice that people speak softer when you're silent. That rooms slow down when you enter. That even arguments start to resolve under your composure. This isn't magic. It's Machiavellian psychology. People unconsciously yield to the energy that feels more grounded. And the one who feels less reactive always becomes the authority. In the language of seduction, this means you stop chasing the emotional high of her responses. You start rewarding yourself with composure instead of validation. Because every time you resist the urge to speak, to fill the silence, to prove yourself, you reclaim power. You turn what used to be anxiety into gravity. And that gravity becomes your magnetism. She will test it. She'll interrupt, tease, question, provoke, anything to see if she can shake your frame. That's her way of asking, "Can I trust your energy?" If you stay centered, she relaxes into your calm. If you wobble, she pulls back because no woman wants to follow a man who can't lead himself. When you slow down, she speeds up. When you stay still, she adjusts her tone. When you stop chasing approval, she starts chasing meaning. You have shifted the polarity of control. She now dances to your rhythm. And in that dance, she begins to crave your presence, not for what you say, but for how you make her feel. This is the silent hierarchy Machiavelli would have recognized in every royal court and romantic encounter alike. The few who hold stillness command the many who fidget. The calm man leads the chaotic. The deliberate man leads the impulsive. Because stillness, when genuine, is dominance disguised as peace. Your words from that point on are merely an extension of your presence, not the source of it. They become instruments of direction rather than proof of worth. And when you reach that state, you understand why Machiavelli said that the appearance of virtue is more powerful than virtue itself. Because it's not about truth, it's about perception. And perception is built long before language begins. Remember this, you are always teaching people how to treat you. Not through what you say, but through what you tolerate. You are always telling her who you are, not through your charm, but through your silence. The Machiavellian man speaks last, but defines everything that is said. He holds the frame before words ever touch the air. So the next time you enter a room, a conversation, a glance, pause, breathe, let stillness precede you. Because power isn't announced, it's recognized. And once you learn to install your frame before words, the world begins to move around your rhythm, not the other way around. But words, when chosen with intent, become tools of elegant manipulation. Part 4. Strategic conversation. Lead the frame. Don't react to her rhythm. Make her sink to yours. This is the essence of invisible control. Machiavelli understood that the most dangerous rulers were not those who forced obedience through power, but those who made others willingly adjust to their tempo. Control without conflict. That was his genius. And in the art of attraction, that same law applies. You do not dominate a conversation by speaking more. You dominate by directing its current subtly, quietly, as if the river had chosen its path on its own. She should never feel that she's being guided. She should feel compelled to follow. That is Machiavellian mastery. To control without appearing to control. Most men talk to be heard. A Machiavellian man talks to direct attention. He uses words the way a sculptor uses a chisel, not to decorate, but to remove what's unnecessary. He knows that every sentence should either build tension or reveal power. Everything else is noise. Powerful conversation is not about what you say. It's about what you withhold. It's about leaving traces instead of confessions, questions instead of answers. When you reveal too much, she stops imagining. When you leave space, her mind starts creating. And what her mind creates will always be more intoxicating than the truth. That's why Machiavelli taught that a ruler must be a fox as well as a lion. The lion for presence, the fox for subtlety. To lead her frame, you must learn both. You must project quiet strength, but move with precision, shaping the rhythm of her thoughts without force, without haste. There are 3 pillars to this art: fracture patterns, minimalism with intent, and emotional contrast. Together, they form the structure of conversational dominance. Fracture patterns are the art of deliberate interruption, not of her, but of yourself. You speak, then stop mid-sentence, leaving the air charged with unfinished meaning. You pause just long enough for her mind to chase the ending. And in that chase, she invests. Curiosity is the first form of psychological submission. Because once she needs closure, she follows your rhythm. You don't owe her completion. You owe her tension. And tension is what builds fascination. When you speak in fractures, she starts to lean in, waiting for your next word, your next breath. That's when you own the tempo, because now she's not thinking of her next line. She's reacting to yours. The second pillar is minimalism with intent. Never explain what doesn't serve your power. Never elaborate when simplicity strikes harder. The more you say, the less each word means. The less you say, the more each word becomes a riddle. A Machiavellian doesn't speak to fill silence. He speaks to bend perception. You must learn to leave strategic absences in conversation, gaps that she feels compelled to fill. Ask a question, then disappear into stillness. Let her fill it with speculation, stories, vulnerability. While she reveals, you remain unreadable. She tries to decode you, but the silence becomes a mirror reflecting her own desires back at her. Avoid low-value topics, gossip, daily trivialities, pointless opinions. Every time you indulge in small talk, you bleed power, because small talk is comfort and comfort breeds equality. But attraction is born in inequality. In the distance between her uncertainty and your composure, you must also omit answers that don't serve your power. When she asks where you were, what you think, or how you feel, you owe her ambiguity, not dishonesty, but artful vagueness. Answer indirectly. Redirect with calm confidence. Let her sense that you know more than you reveal. That you choose what to share. A man who reveals everything has no leverage left. A man who chooses what to reveal becomes a mystery she keeps revisiting. The third and most dangerous pillar is emotional contrast. Power is not coldness. It's control over warmth. When you can switch between gentleness and firmness with precision, you create an addictive emotional rhythm. She never feels stable around you. Not in a destructive way, but in a magnetic way. She can't predict when you'll soften, when you'll withdraw, when you'll re-engage. That unpredictability turns her decoding instinct into obsession. Machiavelli knew that power must seduce as much as it commands. He wrote that a ruler must appear merciful, but remain ruthless in the right moments. Translated into the art of conversation, this means show warmth sparingly. Give approval like a rare currency, one that must be earned. Smile only when you mean it. Compliment only when it serves your intent. And when you withdraw your warmth, let silence replace it. That silence will haunt her more than any rejection. When you master emotional contrast, you stop being one-dimensional. You become unpredictable, layered, alive. You are no longer just the nice guy or the cold one. You are the paradox she cannot resolve and therefore cannot forget. The secret of leading the frame lies in rhythm. Every interaction is an exchange of tempo. Most men follow her lead. They laugh when she laughs, speak when she asks, adapt to her mood. But when you learn to slow the rhythm, you take control of perception. You teach her nervous system to follow your pace. This is not manipulation. It's alignment. Because in nature, the calmer energy always absorbs the restless one. When she gets emotional, stay grounded. When she becomes distant, stay still. When she tests you, stay amused. That is the Machiavellian triad. Stillness, detachment, playfulness. Stillness builds respect. Detachment builds intrigue. Playfulness builds tension. Through these three, you lead without effort. You guide her emotions the way gravity guides the moon. Invisible, but irresistible. Most men think control comes from dominance. It doesn't. It comes from patience. The ability to watch her emotions rise and fall without jumping in to fix them. Because every time you fix, you follow. And every time you follow, you lose. The Machiavellian man never argues for his frame. He lives it. He doesn't explain why he's calm. His calm becomes the evidence of strength. He doesn't declare confidence. His slowness, his tone, his selective attention, they all show it. Words are only an echo of his presence. And his presence defines the rhythm of the entire exchange. Try this. When she asks, "What are you thinking?" Don't answer. Pause. Look at her. Hold that pause until it becomes a question inside her mind. Then give a slow smile and nothing else. You've just installed your frame without a single word. You've turned curiosity into tension and tension into attraction. Every Machiavellian strategy in conversation serves one purpose: to remain above the surface. Never dive too deep into emotional chaos. Stay where the air is thin, where your silence has weight, and your words are chosen like weapons. She must feel that she's reaching upward to meet your depth, not pulling you downward into hers. This doesn't mean you're distant. It means you're deliberate. You decide when to engage and when to retreat. When to reveal warmth and when to cloak it. When to answer and when to let the question burn in her mind. Control, when done right, is invisible. It doesn't feel like dominance. It feels like inevitability, like gravity, like something she didn't choose but can't resist. And that's exactly how Machiavelli defined true power. The kind that needs no declaration, only presence. She's drawn to what she can't predict. She's addicted to what she can't define. And your restraint, your silence, your strategic rhythm, they all feed that addiction. You're not competing with her. You're conducting her. Every reaction she gives you becomes a note in a melody you control. This is the dark art of strategic conversation. The invisible choreography of power and perception. You speak less but say more. You give less but mean more. You reveal nothing but control everything. And when she feels herself sinking to your rhythm, when her tone begins to soften, when her words start mirroring yours, she won't know why. Only that she feels safe and alive in your calm. That's when you've led the frame. Because real control isn't tested when things are calm. It's tested when she challenges your frame. When emotion rises and pressure builds, that's when the facade of confidence cracks for most men. But for a Machiavellian, that's when mastery begins. Part 5. Invisible counterattacks to her tests. When she tests you, she's not trying to destroy you. She's trying to find your ceiling. She's not your enemy. She's your mirror. Every test is her way of asking, can I trust your strength? Can I trust your calm? Can I lose control around you without both of us falling apart? The weak man sees her tests as rejection. The Machiavellian man sees them as ritual, the hidden ceremony where power is rebalanced and truth is revealed. Because deep down, she doesn't test the man she doesn't care about. She tests the man who might be dangerous to her heart. The man who can shake her sense of control. And only one kind of man survives those tests. The man who understands Machiavelli's law of subtle power. Avoid open war. Win through calm deflection. A test is never about words. It's about energy. It's the invisible tug to see if you'll bend. She doesn't want you to fight. She wants you to hold. To remain composed while her emotions attempt to pull you off balance. Because if you can stay calm while she burns, she will feel something she hasn't felt in years. Safety in the presence of masculine power. Every test she gives you is a wave. Most men try to resist the wave. They argue, justify, prove. But resistance only creates friction. And friction only feeds her chaos. A Machiavellian doesn't resist. He absorbs. He lets the wave crash against his stillness. And in doing so, it loses strength. Absorb. This is your first counterattack. One so subtle it feels like none at all. When she raises her voice, you lower yours. When she accuses, you observe. When she's emotional, you breathe slower. She throws chaos into the air, expecting you to catch it. But you don't. You let it pass through. You mirror her tone without matching her volatility. And as her energy collides with your neutrality, it dissolves because emotion cannot survive in the absence of reaction. In that silence, she'll feel the difference between a man who fights her and a man who understands her storm. Machiavelli wrote that the wisest rulers never engage enemies directly. They redirect their aggression into exhaustion. You must do the same. Let her emotion spend itself against your calm. Eventually, she'll realize that her power to provoke you is only an illusion. That you are not moved by her volatility. You're anchored beneath it. The second counterattack is redirect. Most men answer questions directly, thinking honesty earns respect. But honesty without control is just surrender. A Machiavellian answers not to reveal truth but to guide perception. When she asks a question meant to corner you, don't defend, redirect. Answer questions with questions. Shift her focus away from your reaction and toward her own curiosity. She says, "Why didn't you text me back?" You smile and ask, "Why did you notice?" She says, "Do you even care?" You say, "What made you ask that?" Now she's no longer attacking. She's explaining herself. The power dynamic has shifted. You're no longer under interrogation. You've become the one steering the conversation. Machiavelli would have called this the art of redirection. The strategy of turning confrontation into compliance. You never confront energy head-on. You reroute it. You make her emotion work for you. You give her curiosity something to chase. And in chasing, she invests attention, the rarest currency of all. The third counterattack is role inversion. When she challenges you, invert the frame. Turn her test into fascination. A playful reversal, a confident smirk, a cryptic response tells her that you're unshaken. She says, "You've changed." You smile slowly and say, "Maybe you finally see." You don't argue. You redefine. And in that instant, her mind stalls because she expected defense and got dominance. You flipped the emotional script. Role inversion is psychological judo. You don't resist her push. You use it to pull her closer. You don't try to prove her wrong. You make her question her certainty. And once her certainty cracks, curiosity floods in. Curiosity is the gateway to obsession. Understand this. A woman's tests are not about control. They're about confirmation. She's confirming that your frame is real, that your calm isn't performance. When she provokes you, she's asking, "Can you lead me when I'm emotional? Can you remain unshaken when I'm chaos? Can you stay composed when I'm fire?" If your answer is yes, not in words, but in energy, she relaxes because her nature finds peace in your stillness. And your stillness is the proof she was searching for. Machiavelli said that power is maintained not by aggression but by the illusion of unbreakability. In relationships, this illusion becomes truth when you stop trying to win arguments. You don't need to prove who's right. You only need to show who's steady because the steady one always leads. The Machiavellian man doesn't respond emotionally to feminine chaos. He orchestrates it. He lets it exist without absorbing it. He knows that every emotional spike is temporary, but every loss of composure leaves a permanent scar on his authority. So, he never lets emotion pull him off his throne. When she tests you, you are not being attacked. You are being measured. She is trying to feel your edges. She's pushing against the walls of your frame to see if they hold. If they crumble, she feels unsafe. If they hold, she feels desire. This is instinct, not logic. And Machiavelli understood that instinct rules all politics, including the politics of attraction. The more calm you remain, the deeper she falls. Because in that calm, she feels something rare. A man who doesn't break under pressure. Her tests become smaller. Her tone softens. Her guard drops because she no longer needs to challenge what she already trusts. But remember, calm is not coldness. Coldness repels. Calmness seduces. The difference lies in awareness. Coldness ignores her emotion. Calmness acknowledges it without drowning in it. You don't say, "You're overreacting." You say, "I hear you." Then silence. You mirror her feeling, not her chaos. She feels seen yet not in control. And that combination, validation without submission, is what breaks her defenses. Women are emotional tacticians. They will provoke to see who you are underneath the mask. They'll say things to cut, to sting, to test the depth of your composure. But if you respond with calm humor, the test backfires because laughter, slow, confident, unbothered laughter is the sound of power. It tells her, "Your words can't move me. You're safe with me because I'm safe within myself." That's what Machiavelli meant when he wrote that the appearance of calm is more useful than sincerity. People don't follow the most honest leader. They follow the one who doesn't flinch. In love, it's no different. She doesn't crave your vulnerability. She craves your stability. She wants to feel the gravity that holds her chaos together. She wants to know that no matter what she throws, you won't lose yourself. Absorb, redirect, invert. These are your invisible counterattacks. They require no anger, no defense, no explanation, only presence. And presence is power in its purest form. Because the moment you defend yourself, you've already admitted defeat. The moment you explain, you've surrendered your mystery. But when you smile in silence, when you absorb her storm, redirect her energy, invert her challenge, you show her something deeper than confidence. You show her mastery. Machiavelli would say that true dominance is felt, not declared. It's the calm that turns resistance into reverence. And when she realizes she can no longer move you, she stops fighting you. She starts seeking you. Next time she says, "You've changed." Don't argue. Don't explain. Smile slow, deliberate, and say, "Maybe you finally see." Let that sentence hang in the air like smoke. Let her imagination do the rest. Because in that moment, she'll feel it. That quiet, unnerving truth. She never had control. She was only measuring the man who did. Once she feels that calm dominance, the dynamic transforms from attraction to addiction. Because obsession is born the moment a woman realizes she cannot move the man who moves her world. Part 6. From attraction to obsession. Become an unfinished story. She doesn't crave you. She craves the unsolved puzzle you've become. The version of you that lives more in her imagination than in her hands. Because what is complete can be appreciated. But only what's unfinished can be obsessed over. Machiavelli understood this principle not in love but in power. He knew that the most enduring control comes not from satisfaction but from tension, from the promise of something always just beyond reach. He saw how kings, lovers, and rivals could all be ruled by one invisible force, curiosity. And curiosity is never born from clarity. It's born from mystery. In love, this becomes the most dangerous kind of control. Attraction begins when she notices you. Obsession begins when she can't define you. When she feels you, touches you, speaks to you, but never quite knows you. When every gesture feels intentional but never fully explained. When every silence makes her wonder if you're still thinking about her or if you've already moved on. You must understand this. Perfection does not create obsession. Perfection is predictable. It ends the chase. Tension, not beauty, not kindness, not attention, is what keeps her hooked. The tension between what she sees and what she cannot see, between what you reveal and what you withhold, between your warmth and your distance. That contradiction is your power. The Machiavellian man builds that tension deliberately. He doesn't let her finish the story. He creates emotional cliffhangers, moments that linger in her mind like unanswered questions. He gives just enough to awaken her imagination, but never enough to let her rest. Because once her imagination is working for you, her emotions follow. She will think she's falling in love. She's not. She's falling into uncertainty. And you are the source of it. An emotional cliffhanger can be as simple as a pause before goodbye. As simple as a look that suggests more than words ever could. It's the message left unanswered. The night that ends too soon. The compliment that sounds almost like a warning. These small fractures in her certainty become cracks through which curiosity slips in. And curiosity, once awakened, becomes the engine of obsession. When she can't predict you, she starts to build versions of you in her mind. Each version more idealized than the last. Each version a reflection of her own desire. She's no longer attracted to you. She's addicted to her idea of you. And that's the highest form of psychological control. The kind Machiavelli would call the illusion of freedom. You never forced her to chase. She chose to. But the choice was never truly hers. It was built inside the uncertainty you designed. Real scarcity is the next layer of this art. Disappearing when she expects you is not cruelty. It's calibration. Absence, when intentional, amplifies emotion. Because in your absence, her imagination takes control. She rewinds every conversation, replays every silence, searches for hidden meaning in every word you ever said. She starts to see you everywhere, in songs, in strangers, in her own dreams. That's not coincidence. That's what happens when a Machiavellian man removes his presence with precision. Disappearance must never feel like punishment. It must feel like mystery. As if you vanished into your own world, a world she's desperate to re-enter. You don't announce distance. You create it quietly. A delayed reply, a shorter message, a sudden silence after intensity. Each withdrawal becomes a vacuum that pulls her deeper. Women feel most addicted when the rhythm of presence and absence becomes unpredictable. When she can't tell if you'll appear or vanish because every reappearance feels like a reward. Every silence becomes a test she wants to pass. This rhythm mirrors the mechanics of dopamine. Anticipation followed by relief. Craving followed by release. It's not romance. It's conditioning. And Machiavelli would have called it the training of perception. But scarcity alone isn't enough. It must be woven with inner contradictions because nothing holds her attention like paradox. Be warm but distant, revealing yet guarded, attentive but detached. Let her feel your presence without ever feeling ownership. You're the story she can read but never fully understand. This is the psychology of obsession. The human mind cannot stop revisiting what it cannot resolve. Every time she tries to define you, she discovers another contradiction. Every attempt to box you in fails. And failure fuels fascination. She'll start to question herself. Why can't I figure him out? Why can't I stop thinking about him? Why do I feel more when he says less? That spiral is the Machiavellian trap. She will call it attraction. But it's not attraction anymore. It's dependency on uncertainty. You must cultivate this balance consciously. Too much distance and you vanish from her mind. Too much warmth and she feels safe enough to stop chasing. You must exist in the in-between. Where your presence comforts but never satisfies. Where your attention feels earned but never guaranteed. That space between fulfillment and frustration is where desire lives. It's the twilight of emotion. Neither day nor night where everything feels heightened and nothing feels certain. Machiavelli said that a prince should make himself both loved and feared, but never too much of either because extremes create rebellion. Balance creates loyalty. The same principle applies to seduction. Be close enough for her to feel you, distant enough for her to miss you. Let her see warmth behind your eyes, but never let her possess it fully. Because the moment she feels certain, the illusion dies. You are not her dream come true. You are her dream interrupted. And that interruption, that emotional cliffhanger, keeps her mind working in circles long after you're gone. When she lies in bed, she'll replay the way you looked at her and wonder what it meant. She'll think of your silence and wonder if it was indifference or restraint. She'll remember your presence and feel both comforted and haunted. That's when you've crossed the threshold from attraction to obsession. The key is to remain unpredictable but not erratic. Erratic men are chaotic. Machiavellian men are deliberate. You must make her uncertainty feel meaningful, not random. She should sense depth behind your pauses, intent behind your disappearances. Every absence must feel like purpose, not neglect. Every silence must carry weight, not emptiness. That's how you build mystery with structure, the highest form of control. Remember, she doesn't chase love. She chases the feeling of almost understanding you. And when you create that emotional near-miss, the feeling that she's so close to figuring you out, she will never let go. Because her brain equates near victory with unfinished business. And unfinished business never leaves the mind in peace. This is why Machiavelli's writings still echo centuries later. He understood that humans are not addicted to outcomes. They are addicted to the pursuit, to the chase, to the illusion of progress that never ends. You must become that illusion. The man who gives just enough clarity to keep her hoping and just enough mystery to keep her hunting. Be the story she keeps rereading because it never ends. Every chapter you give her should open another question. Every interaction should leave her wanting just one more because obsession is built not from intensity but from incompletion. And when you become an unfinished story, she can never close the book. She'll start comparing others to you unconsciously, involuntarily. Every new man will feel too simple, too transparent, too easy to read. You've imprinted the emotional pattern of uncertainty in her nervous system. And once she's tasted that, the high, the tension, the silence, she won't want anything else. Even when you're gone, she'll feel you in her quiet moments, in her pauses between thoughts. Because the space you left behind has become her echo chamber. Every memory of you reverberates there, reshaped, idealized, untouchable. And that's when you've achieved what Machiavelli called the invisible rule. Control that requires no presence. Power that continues in absence. Understand this truth. Attraction begins with your presence. Obsession begins with your disappearance. And the man who masters both, appearing with precision, vanishing with purpose, becomes unforgettable. He becomes not just a memory, but a mythology. And in the stillness you leave behind, her mind becomes your echo chamber. She never fell for your words. She fell for the way your silence held her reflection. In you, she didn't see a man. She saw the outline of herself refracted through calm power. You didn't charm her. You framed her. And within that frame, she felt the rarest emotion a woman can feel. Uncertainty mixed with desire. She never chased your presence. She chased the mystery that made her feel alive. Because you weren't predictable. And predictability is death to attraction. You didn't fill every silence. You let her imagination do the work. And her imagination built you into something larger than life. That's why she couldn't stop thinking about you. Not because you said the right things, but because you withheld the wrong ones. She never wanted your validation. She wanted to earn it because every moment you stayed still. Every pause you held, every gaze you didn't explain became a mirror. And in that mirror, she saw her own hunger reflected. You made her feel something that words can't describe. The weight of her own craving. That's why she came closer. Not to know you, but to know why she couldn't. Power isn't declared. It's perceived. The loudest man in the room may demand respect, but the quiet one commands it because power that must announce itself is already lost. Attraction isn't connection, it's tension. The moment she feels certain, the spell breaks. Mystery, distance, restraint. These are not walls. They are architecture. The architecture of control that Machiavelli understood better than anyone. Power thrives not in dominance, but in perception. Machiavelli's wisdom was never about deceit. It was about structure. The invisible scaffolding beneath every kingdom, every empire, every seduction. He knew that human nature doesn't change. Only its stage does. And on the modern stage of love, you are not her ruler. You are her mirror. The reflection she cannot stop returning to. So remember this. Your words will fade. Your looks will age. But your composure, your silence will echo. Because silence isn't emptiness, it's strategy. If you want to master it, if you want to learn how absence becomes influence, watch the next video. The power of absence. How to control her mind without saying a word. Because true control begins not when you speak, but when she hears your silence long after you've gone.